Assalamualaikum students. Today we will discuss unit number 10 of inclusive education. Instructional strategies disorder. Introduction. Inclusive teaching and learning refers to modes of teaching and learning that are designed to actively engage, include and challenge all students. The practice of inclusive teaching can also help instructors broaden and expand their understanding of their own disciplines and of what they hope to accomplish in teaching. Educating all students together in the regular classroom is seen as a rational approach in preparing all children to be fully participating, valued members of the community. Historically, secondary schools used an organizational model where learning needs among students were relatively homogeneous. Teaching was subject content centered and little communication among teachers was required. Practice has shown that such classes do not meet the needs of all children as they have diverse needs. Therefore, teachers need some variation in instructional approaches. Establishing a successful model of full inclusion in secondary schools poses different and perhaps more complex but not impossible. The secondary teachers facing the inclusive classroom should be reassured in the knowledge that lies in the extension of flexibility, not the discovery of new mystical technique. Individualization strategies for inclusion in secondary schools to accomplish diversity of learning needs among students requires careful attention to individualization within the framework of general instruction, as every child has different needs from the other. To accomplish this, teachers build on a foundation of principles for inclusive classrooms, attend to the learning styles of the students present in the classroom, adjust the curriculum accordingly. Teachers use the given strategies to meet the learning needs of students in an inclusive classroom. Strategy 1. Utilize principles of inclusion. To prepare for teaching in inclusive secondary classrooms, keep in mind the following principles. Include the whole class in lesson. Identify the specific purpose for each student in the classroom. Focus on understanding concepts rather than covering content. Employ a variety of flexible instruction strategies. Employ a variety of flexible evaluation techniques. Lesson presentation is based on the assumption that all students will participate. The amount of content to be covered is the primary focus in secondary schools, whereas the focus of teachers should be on underlying principles and their application in the real world. Strategy to accommodate learning styles. The diversity of learning needs found in heterogeneous classes can best be described in terms of learning styles rather than labels. Naturally occurring numbers in an inclusive class will likely have no more than one student with some type of severe disability. Several students experiencing difficulty with reading, writing, communication, behavior, numbers. The majority of the students experiencing no obvious difficulty mastering the curriculum, and a few students requiring enrichment or extension of the curriculum. Ability disability labels serve little purpose in assisting the teacher in the design and delivery of the appropriate instruction program. Consideration of learning styles during lesson preparation provides increased opportunities for all members of the class to benefit from the instruction. Teachers need to be primarily concerned with delivering a curriculum via varied and flexible learning activities that incorporate visual, auditory, motor, kinesthetic, and tactile approaches. Strategy 3. Individualized curriculum. To promote optimal learning in the classroom for each children, the teacher participates in the development of individualized plans for specific students and incorporates the individual learning objectives into the classroom lesson. To accomplish this, following steps are taken. Assess the specific student's learning characteristics, assess the classroom learning environment, identify goals and objectives for the specific student. Incorporate the student's learning objectives into the class lessons. The learning objectives are designed to appropriate challenge the student. The learning activities to be used are designed to suit the learning styles and needs expected to be present in the class. The teacher then further adjust the instruction approach and learning activities by accommodating the specific individualized learning style and needs of the student. Organization strategies for inclusion. To facilitate successful teaching in inclusive secondary classrooms, consider the following organizational strategies. Strategy 1. Organize the physical setting. Special consideration needs to be given to the best location for each type of student in the classroom. Students having vision problems should be seated near the board or in front of the room. Consider a hearing impaired student and placing him in front of the class so that he can hear the speaker's voice clearly and a clear view of the speaker's face for visual cues. If a class includes a student who uses a wheelchair or walker, area space in the classroom must be sufficiently wide to access to all areas of the rooms. While there is no hard and fast rules as each student's needed will be different, it is important to be flexible and creative in organizing the classroom. Organizing classroom routines in an inclusive classroom is typically different as disabled students need more attention and practice to abide by the routine being followed in the class. Classroom routines can be established that facilitate access to and management and storage of learning materials for the students. Many students believe their classroom can be regulated by providing a single permission to use and by providing a class pass placed near the door where students can access and return independently, thereby limiting the number requests as well as students leaving the classroom at one time. A second source of organizing classroom is well understood and appreciate code of conduct. Students' understanding is promoted by involving them in the development of a clear statement of students' rights and responsibilities. Making rules with the cooperation also allows the students to follow them. Teachers can place the steps away from the wall for clear understanding. The most powerful means of teaching the rules of appropriateness is the behavior modeled by the teacher. Strategy 3. Organize the students. The organizing or setting of students vary depending upon the nature of the lesson or learning experiences and where the learning is taking place. Regardless of the location and the activity, Ferguson and Fairchild suggest three basic principles that should always be applied when creating student groups. Maximize variation across students' characteristics, maximize positive interdependence, maximize individual accomplishments. The purpose of organizing students in groups is so they can work together, build relationship with peers, share material, and help one another. Develops potential and leadership roles, specific goals and objectives vary according to each student's learning needs and maximizing individual accomplishments needs to be facilitated by the organization of students group. Strategy 4. Organize sport personnel. Sport personnel in an inclusive classroom primarily includes educational assistants, source teachers, team teachers, and parent or community volunteers. Decisions regarding level of support are made by the teacher in collaboration with the student, parents, and principals considering the following factors. Determine teacher support required. The amount and nature of support required by the teacher varies according to the size of class, the nature of diversity presented in the class, and the background. Skills and experience teacher brings to the teaching situation. An inexperienced teacher may require additional support in an inclusive classroom, whereas an experienced teacher may not require additional support. More support is also required at specific period of time, such as at the beginning of the term or during a complex unit of instruction. Determine student support required. The amount and nature of support required by the individual students depends on the particular needs of the students and by demand of the learning task. A student is likely to require more support when new task is introduced. However, as the skill is developed and student becomes more fluent, the support is removed. Utilize existing structures as supports. Some teacher support exist or has the potential to exist within the typical organizational structures of the school. Types of collaborative teams would include teachers meeting as grade level or interdisciplinary team to focus on cooperative planning for a particular student or curriculum issue or as subject team to focus on a particular element of subject matter. Utilize specialists as support. A specialist support is required when the learning need of a student are not satisfactorily met by the resources within the school. Using the chain of command established by each school board, the teacher's role is to access the necessary support to meet the needs of all students in class. The outside specialists provide the assessment and intervention advice required to improve the learning outcomes of the students. Understand the facts of sport. Teaching is characterized as an involved, complex, sometimes frustrating, but rewarding task at any time. Proper balance of sport is essential as there is danger in both under-sport and over-sport. Insufficient sport can lead the teacher to frustration, low achievement, and dissatisfaction expressed by parents, administrators, and school board. However, oversport also have negative effects as teachers become more dependent on the support of others and fail to learn new skills. Pedagogical strategies for inclusion. Students learn from everything that happens in the classroom. Teacher must consciously be aware of the total learning environment and ensure that it promotes positive growth for all students in the inclusive classroom. Strategy 1. Model attitudes and values. The teacher is a powerful force in the classroom whose actions communicate important values and attitudes. When speaking to or about students, teachers convey respect by always referring to students by their names rather than by characteristics and especially not by their disability. A class should be welcoming to students so that they may feel an important part of the class, not an exceptional. Following are some strategies that teachers can use. Speak to or about students by name. Place equal value on all parts of the curriculum. Be available to students for an informal chat. Recognize the social nature of acquiring knowledge. Model collaborative learning and problem solving. Strategy 2. Provide structure. Most students benefit from some measures of structure to facilitate their learning. For some, the structure needs to be explicit, tangible, and consistent, but used not interfere with normal routines and learning activities, nor make a particular student stand out. For students to transfer their learning to real life, it is essential that the teacher structure learning activities to foster the use of natural cues rather than having students learn to be dependent upon teachers or teaching assistants. For example, homework instructions written in the same place on the board each day help the students with organization problems learn to find it. Strategy 3. Basic instruction approaches. When preparing for instruction, each lesson is planned for the whole class with individual learning objectives interwoven into class objectives so that the lesson has a specific objective for each student. Expository. When disseminating oral information to students or giving comprehensive explanations, consider number of strategies. The teacher can write headings or subheadings on the board and copies for an individual student where necessary. Inquiry. The inquiry mode includes seeking information, solve problems, and conducting investigations or experiments. A frequent application of the inquiry modes is the asking of questions. Teachers can ask questions slowly and in a clear, simple language and allow sufficient time for the students to formulate a response. Demonstration. Demonstration is especially suitable for students who need to be shown or engage in the activity themselves to learn. Visual cues are an essential part of demonstration. However, auditory cues may or may not be useful. Activity. Activity-based instruction is a learning by doing approach best used with small cooperative groups of students. Although individual or whole class variations may also be used, instructions need to be given orally or in written form for students to understand, to follow the steps, and to complete the activity. Activity-based instruction is particularly suited for multi-ability groups of students as all learning styles and abilities can easily be accommodated. Strategy 4. Providing learning modality support. This focus on providing additional student support focusing on each of the learning modalities. Visual support when instruction is oral or through lecture or discussion. Visual supports can be provided with pictures, photographs, diagrams, charts, maps, globes, and constructed models to assist students' comprehension. Auditory support. Students experiencing any level of difficulty in reading can be supported with audio tapes, Tactile sports. Tactile learners need to be able to touch objects to fully understand them. They can be provided with any real-life object or artifacts, and engaging students in projects involving construction of models can be very helpful. Manipulative sports. Mathematics and science particularly lend themselves to the use of manipulative sports. Some students benefit from using sticks or string to form the structure studied in geometry. Kinesthetic sports. For some students, using the whole body is a means of understanding concepts, while not all instructional content lends itself to this form of learning. Much of it can. Technological sport. Computer technology is fast becoming a standard learning tool in the classroom. Computer offers support to students having difficulty with writing as it avoids the visual motor activity of handwriting and provides spelling and grammar editing support and easy correction of errors. Strategy 5. Evaluation strategies. Evaluation of student progress involves decisions about how and when evaluation takes place. Giving students some choice of learning activities and assignments provides teachers with important information about how each student learns. Progress needs to be evaluated taking individual differences into account. Therefore, choices regarding method of demonstrating knowledge need to be available. Accommodation may also be made for students who performs best when questions are presented orally either by a teacher, assistant, or an audio tape. Experience difficulty with the writing process and perform best when questions are answered orally and audio taped or on computer. Strategy 6. Provide recognition. Students need recognition not only for academic success but also for non-academic success as their participation in sports, play, social activities, helping others, appreciating and placing students' work on display improves self-esteem, sparks creativity and motivation, and increases sense of ownership towards school. Curriculum material strategies for inclusion. Modifying curriculum materials to suit a particular student has long been recognized as a traditional task of teachers. The few existing studies typically focus on a particular disability and are the elementary classroom. The following strategies address all levels of learning needs. Principles for curriculum material modification. In addition to lecture and discussion, such learning strategies and activities as modified reading materials, photo study, paper pencil activities, board and card games, and speaking and movement activities may all be used. Development of modified materials. Whether learning activities resources are developed by the teacher, by teaching assistant, by school volunteers, or by students, time and effort are required. Teachers are encouraged to develop a collection of adapted materials over the year that can be updated and revised for ongoing use in the classroom.